Thank you, everyone, for coming. This is an executive session of the Memphis City Council. Would you call the roll, please?
Councilman Berlin Boyd. Councilman William Boyd.
Here.
Councilman Brown.
Here.
Councilman Collins.
Present.
Vice Chairman Conrad. Councilman Crone. Councilman Ford. Councilman Fullylove.
Here.
Councilwoman Halbert. Councilman Hedgepeth. Councilman Morrison. Councilman Strickland. Chairman Lowry.
Here. The first item has been dropped from our agenda. The second item is redistricting. Yes, Mr. Collins.
It hadn't been dropped, it's been postponed.
Forgive me. Until when?
I think it's going to be the final meeting in August.
All right.
I don't want to put anything on August the 4th. So we're going to do the last meeting in August for a final wrap up on the Natural Disaster Relief Fund.
They go first.
Okay, fine. Since we're on that, smart meters is now being held until October 20th.
Amen.
And the Civilian Law Enforcement Review Board is on tap for August 4th. Now, if you recall, I promised to hear that item first on the agenda, and it's also National Night Out. We will try to keep the agenda as tight as we can so that we can all get out early, but this issue has been delayed several times, and we will hear this on August 4th first. All right, we've got some add-ons in addition. Item number 36, before we get to you, Alan, since I'm talking about this. Item 36, a resolution thanking Public Works Director DeJuan Gillum for his service. Item 37, a resolution amending the FY16 CIP budget by $6.5 million. And item 38, resolution accepting grant funds for more than $3 million from the state for Workforce Development Title I Youth Program. That's all I have now for the add-ons, unless there's something else from anyone. Okay, show Hedgepeth and Halbert joining us on the rolls. All right.
Any other drops, Mr. Chairman?
I'm not aware of any other drops at this time.
Oh, the one on Coffin Drive.
Is that a zoning? Okay, it's a zoning issue.
Yeah, we did.
All right. Yes, ma'am.
It's mine. I don't see Sophia in here.
The council districts.
Yes.
Neighborhood council.
I don't know the number.
Well, I'll announce that downstairs as well. All right, Mr. Wade, you have the floor.
Thank you, sir. I've given you two pieces of paper. One is a map, which is the affected council district, District 2. And I've also given you a memo that was written to all council members when we last redistricted on July 8th, 2011. The reason I'm giving you the memo is because it kind of brings everything to us about where we are.
I need a copy of the memo, please. Never mind, I have it.
Pass it down there.
I haven't, no.
I'll pass another one down.
No, I got it. I got it now.
Mine.
Hold on, I have to make sure all the late arrivals get a. Okay, now.
Recognize Berlin, Councilman Boyd.
Thank you, sir. Now, this item is on the agenda, consent agenda, for second reading today. It has not been finally adopted, and I don't know where people got the idea that it had been, but it has not. It is scheduled for final adoption on August 4th. We will probably have to have same night minutes on that date. We will then pass it on to the election commission 65 days before the election. Usually they want 60. The memo on July 8th kind of gives you an overview of what we had to do in 2011. Following the 2010 census, we had to redistrict all districts because the population had essentially moved from the west part of the city to the eastern part of the city. If you see, there is a document attached to that memo at the back. which basically gives you what it looked like before we redistricted and what it looked like after we redistricted, and the revised is the current. And if you look at the top chart, you'll see that after the census, District 1 and District 2 grew to 102,000, 112,000 respectively, and the District 3, 4, not 5, but 6 and 7 actually shrank in population because of the migration from the west to the east. The super districts were also out of balance, with most of the people living in Super District 9 and not in Super District 8. After we redistricted on July, I think it was the middle of July 2011, we were able to pretty much make these districts almost identical in size. This is probably the most perfect redistricting that you could have because there's very little disparity between the populations. District 1, for example, was 91. We reduced it from 102 to 91. District 2, 112 to 93. District 3 went up about 4,000, and then all the rest of the districts are pretty much in the 90s. At this point in time, the largest district is District 5, which is probably the most compact and consistent district in the city. It's in the center. The smallest district now is District 3 under the present redistricting, and if you notice, the two super districts are almost virtually identical. So this gives you a perspective of where we are today. Now, there are a couple of points that were made in the July 8th memo. One, that the redistricting is required by the United States Constitution under the one-man, one-vote principle, which means that all districts must be substantially equal to every other district. Case law has determined that there can be no greater deviation between the highest and lowest districts of 10%, meaning that you have a median number. No district can be more than 5% above the median, and no district can be less than 5% of the median. We also have layered on top of that the 1995 Voting Rights Decree, and for those who don't recall the history of this, we used to have at-large districts, and for years we were, despite hotly contested races, the council was predominantly white and the mayor's office was white. After the Voting Rights Decree, which was a monumental change in the structure of voting structure of the city, the plan required that you have substantial black majorities in at least 7 of the 13 districts. It did away with runoffs in the mayor's office, and I believe it did away with runoff in the super district races as well. And that plan was approved. It was actually a consensus of the council at that time. At that time, there was a lot of litigation. Every council member virtually had their own lawyer. We had all kind of legal expense to fight that battle out, and I think the white council members came to me and said that we'd like to develop a consensus plan where we developed what we have here. I went to Reverend Whalum and Shep Weldon and some of the others, and they agreed that that was something they could get behind. I took it to Judge Turner, Justice Department. They approved it. It was placed into a voting decree, and thereafter we put it on the ballot to have the voters approve the structural change. They approved it and basically gave a mandate for what we have today, and also for the super black majorities in at least 7 districts. So that's what we've tried to adhere to in all of the redistricting since that time. So not only do you have to make sure everything is equal, you also have superimposed on that to make sure you do not dilute the 7 majority black districts. And that is not always an easy task. I also advised you back in 2011, because of the population trends in the city and where the population was moving, that it was going to be increasingly more difficult to do redistricting. it is going to be harder and harder to maintain the supermajorities in the black precincts because half the population is gone east. We've been historically doing this on a vertical plane where we move districts this way. Because everything is being compacted in the east, there may be a time, based on the next census, I predict we're probably going to have to do some horizontal changes up and down. Maybe we'll be beyond this thing, but right now we do have that voting rights obligation to maintain those supermajorities. Now, this gives you a historical picture of where we are today. And what I want to do is just talk about where we've got to go on a very high level. And the first thing I do want to do is each of you has a map of District 2. And the reason I focused on District 2, if you will look on your maps, and I'll point this way, and you might want to mark this, there is a segment here called Cordova 3. It's right here, sure. If you notice, there is a little elbow right there. That part and that little white part in the green Cordova area, that is the South Cordova annexation. If you drop down, there's a green part down here, and there are two white areas right there. Those are the South Winddyke areas. Now, we started working on this in May. We asked OPD for some information. I'm going to go ahead and cast these. This is kind of an overview of where we need to go. There you go.
Thank you.
Just one document.
This is the new document. All right. The first sheet just reiterates what I just told you about the priorities in redistricting. One, to satisfy the constitutional requirement of one man, one vote. The second is to satisfy the federal court order establishing present system with 7 single-member districts and 2 super districts with a supermajority, 77% or greater of African American voters in 7 of the 13 council districts. You also have to maintain compactness and contiguousness, meaning they all have to touch, they all have to be kind of somewhat compact, so you're not running all over the world campaigning and people have some far-reaching out, with the exception of Morrison, who has ease on the page. Everybody else is pretty cohesive. And the objective is always to make as few moves as possible to avoid changing historical council single district representatives of the voters. And this is a consideration must, however, yield to the 2 above, which is the constitutional requirement and the supermajority. I have to remind you that the most important objective is to have a legal election. If we don't do this, we just can't sit pat, as I will show you in a minute. You will not have constitutionally compliant districts. You could have an election and then it could be declared invalid and you'd have to do it all over. So our concern first and foremost is to make sure we have a constitutionally compliant election. Also, remember, redistricting is required under the Voting Rights Act as well, and it's for the benefit of the voters now. So we have to be more concerned with those issues. Now, if you turn the page, you can kind of get a taste for what the difficulty is, because there are approximately 400 precincts in the city. That comprises 12,000 census points. In the past 6 months, what do you mean?
This document you're on.
In the past 6 months, the Election Commission has consolidated over 114 precincts Now, I understand they have been communicating with y'all about that. What that does, let me give you an example. Under our ordinance, we may have in District 3, for example, a series of precincts that we have assigned census data to. When the election commission comes in and combines those into one district, then that means some pieces of that district may be in District 3 and some may be in District 2. And so when you try to identify what you're moving parts of pieces. You don't have a puzzle piece, you got pieces of puzzle pieces. Okay? So that is compounding the task of trying to figure out what goes where. Presently, there are over 217 split precincts in Shelby County. And the two we just added were not part of the city. We annexed them. They are part of larger precincts in Shelby County. I think they're District 4 for the county commission. So what we have to do is take the county commission's data, which might say in that precinct there are 5,000 voters, 5,000 residents. And then we have to apportion pieces of that 5,000 as to what goes in the city and what goes in the county. And that means you have to drill deeper and look at about 1,000 or more census blocks and try to match them up with these areas. So it is not like just snapping your finger doing this job. This is very difficult. Now, our task was compounded further because I told you we started in May. Terry Landwall, who had been my contact and the person that helped structure all of this with all the census data, he retired from OPD in April. We don't have anybody to replace his institutional knowledge. So I've been having to dig deep into his files to try to pull this all together. In 2011, we identified 29 split precincts in the city, and over half of these are in District 2. So, District 2. All right, now the last sheet is what I want you to focus on, and this is on a high level of where we have to go from here. Now, if you look at the top part, current 2011 redistricting, you'll see all those numbers are the same as I gave you in the prior memo. You have pretty much equality not only within the districts but within the super districts. And if you notice the percentage, the median, there is no district that is more than 105% of the median or less than 95% of the median. Now, if you look below, current in 2015, you will notice that District 2 has gone from 93,696 to 108,145. That's because we added 14,000 people from the annexation of South Wind Dyke, and South Cordova. As a result, District 2 is now greater than 105%. And it also looks like that District 3 is under 95%. Okay, you don't have that. I'll make sure you do, don't you? Just that.
This is different than what you got.
The copy.
I didn't get that.
Right there. Right here.
Oh. Okay, I got it.
All right, and then you'll notice that instead of there being less than 1 percentage between 8 and 9, there is now 5 percentage points because 14,000 in South Wind Dyke, and South Cordova was added to District 9. So the function of redistricting now is to equalize these districts again by requiring that precincts be shedded from District 2. That's the only place. You've got to take them out. You can't leave them there. You cannot do it. So the function is, how do we reduce District 2 and ideally enlarge District 3? Because those are your two offending precincts at this point. Now, there are a number of different possibilities. I will I'm working through that now, and I will, as I always do, have a session with each of you to give you some of the options and my recommendations before we make the last presentation. If you go back to the second sheet, I want to show you a couple of concerns.
What is
This one. If you look at the numbers at the bottom, these are numbers from the Election Commission's registered voter statistics by district.
Which page are you on now?
This page right here.
Okay. All right.
Second handout, second page.
Thank you.
All right, if you notice, one of the flaws in their numbers is there is a substantial contingent of what they call other voters. You can't really get a feel for what's what, but if you just take the people who are black and proud and willing to say, I'm black, if you take that number in District 3, you can see there is a drop-off between the percentage of the people that are black registered voters and those that are 18 plus and eligible to vote. The concern is that if you look in 3, 4, and 7, even though they have substantial supermajorities by census, their percentages are not that substantial in terms of registered voters. And so that means you have to be ever vigilant to make sure that whatever moves you make, you don't dilute those districts further by moving precincts out of 2 into 4 or to 3 that would further dilute those numbers. Now, the reason that I point that out to you is on your map, and I'll start with this side first. If you see this line right here, there's a line, a black line right there. That's the dividing line if you extend it out between 3 and 4. And 4 is over here. And 2 is on this side, right? So everything above that black line, okay, look over here. Here's your black line. This is 3, this is 4, this is 2. Now, everything above that black line in 2 is predominantly white, meaning they have super majority. Everything, most of the precincts below that black line in 2 that border 4 or 3 are predominantly black. So your target areas are going to be those contiguous parcels on the left side of 2 that abut District 3. Those are what we're looking at. We have to look at those carefully to make sure that we shift those that increase the African American concentration in 3 and possibly 4. That is an overview of what the redistricting will entail. Now, I know there's been some discussion, and I think we put out just for public consumption some of the precincts we were looking at. I don't even know why we would single any more out, but I think you can look at the map and just look at everything under that blue line. The black line is under consideration. There are, when we do this, we don't have any idea where anybody lives, with one exception. I know where the 13 in the house lives. That's my job to know where y'all live, okay? As far as everybody else, I have no idea. And basically, there are 60 candidates running for city council. There is no way I could, if I had the time, which I think my time is better spent trying to rectify these issues, to determine who is going to be affected and who is not going to be. As I indicated, our goal is to make as few moves as possible to impact as few people as possible. And as I said, I think we will be crystallizing that in the next week or so, and then I will sit down with each of you and give you my recommendation. That's essential.
All right, council members Ford and then Albert. Did you want to speak?
Yeah, yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
the context of the law, does it say mean or median as far as what we need to adhere to?
We take the total number of population divided by the number of districts. 7 into 647, or whatever the new number is.
Yeah, I see it as 600 and
661, 551.
does the law say, does it say mean or median in particular?
I just think the average, I think it's average.
Can you check on that, because if it is the mean and the average, this is correct, but if it does say median, the numbers do change by about 2001.
Okay.
I don't want you to have all that work done on the 94,000 number.
No, I try to have a cushion, but I'll check it out. I think it's the average. The average number, you can't exceed it more than 5% or be below it more than 5%.
Right, which is what I got right here. I just want to make sure that if it's a 2,100 person difference between mean and median, I don't want you to do the work on one, and then 2,000 people have to be shifted all over the place, which makes it more of an onerous task in order to achieve the overall goal.
All right.
And then just my second thing, I know we had to do something similar 4 years ago. Is there something that this council can pass with this ordinance or whatnot, where if there are more individuals that are added prior to like the 2019 election or the 2023 election, we can put something in place so that whoever may run, it wouldn't put a situation like this, just like it was in 2011.
If you think, yeah, okay, let me address that. We basically resolved the South Grand annexation in 2014. And as I pointed out to you, since that time, there have been numerous consolidations at the election commission level, and it's a question of time. It's whether we have a movement or significant population shift close, far enough out to be able to make a determination. The biggest problem that we have is the election commission made its last consolidations, I believe, in your district, as late as June 15th. So, I mean, as long as they keep doing that and they keep moving the target, sorry, nothing I can do.
Well, follow up to what you just said, so could they do this more now up to the election?
Hope not.
I mean, but could they possibly, like?
Yes, they could, and apparently, I've read some of their minutes where they said that there was some concern by some of the commissioners that they get y'all's input. So I understand they've been communicating with y'all, but the election commission,
And see,
but
well,
apparently y'all haven't been given.
They did. The election commission did send each of us a letter indicating that they were consolidating and asked us for input if we wanted to provide it.
Go ahead.
and the only thing I was gonna say was, there are other states in 91. I don't know if any of these situations may have transpired in 91 or 95 or 99 or whatnot, but it happening in 2011 and then 2015, I know there's something that can be done so that this won't be the recurring.
This is not gonna happen again. You know why? Because the General Assembly prevented us from annexing anything else. These are all carryover annexations from the 1997, 98.
Unless the citizens vote in favor of being brought in.
Okay. Now, what you may have, if the General Assembly adopts its legislation to de-annex,
That's what I was gonna say next.
now, you're gonna have a shrinkage.
Yeah.
But the next election for council won't be until 2020. Because in 2015, 2019, you will have a census. Yeah. Your census will come out 2020.
All right, Ms. Halbert, then Mr. Collins. and then Mr. Boyd.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Election Commission consolidation, I know I did get a notice, and they were saying that in certain precincts, there were so few votes that they were consolidating or merging with another. So to me, I didn't equate that to this issue that you're raising today. Meaning, I mean, that could have been that few people showed up, or, you know, for whatever reason, you know, everybody's been talking about them purging the voter roster and all of that. So I want to know if their letter meant anything differently, then why were we not having discussions all along about this? Because this just seemed to be so late, and that's what kind of threw everybody in a frenzy.
Okay. Like I said, I started in May. And these, when they combine precincts, they take 2 of ours and put it in one, which means we have to divide it for our calculations. And so when you have 117 changes between February and June, I mean, it just delays the process.
So they did their process between February and June.
Yeah.
And so, because they're also, what somebody was saying, don't blame this on the Election Commission. So,
I mean, they go their own way, different than we go our way. They are creating precincts for Senate, State Senate, State House, County Commission, City Council, City District, and so they follow the state legislature's districts. Those districts don't conform to ours.
okay.
So when they make all these changes, it disrupts everything that we have. So you're trying to compare apples to oranges when you redo an ordinance and redistrict.
And I guess that's one of my concerns. I thought my numbers were, 4 years ago, I received some other numbers about the population in District 4. And they're different from the numbers that I'm seeing in this report.
Okay.
And that's what I've been waiting to get those sent back to me. I think I may have them in my car. And my concern is you've got all of these different groups or organizations, and everybody's got different numbers or different information. What's the right information?
The right information is based on our maps and our census tracts, census blocks. So we drew the districts and conformed the census block, which is the lowest counting denominator of census information. So that's how we got our numbers, and we believe our numbers are accurate.
And I hear you. I think that goes back to when we had the Economic Development Committee meeting, and you were talking about all of the buzzwords at the table. We believe what is. I mean, because somewhere, you know, is the Election Commission, they're just solely using information from the state based on the way they're trying to draw boundaries or precincts, consolidate precincts or post precincts.
What they're doing is a different function than what we're doing. They're combining precincts based on the numbers within the precinct. And where it doesn't make sense to have 2 polling places, they're trying to combine them into 1 polling place.
Right.
But that 1 polling place may have people voting in a county election and a city election. I've got 1 precinct that I've got to divide the people. And so I got them divided under our numbers, but I don't have them divided under their numbers. And when you have 117 combinations, you got to do that.
Okay. So again, the question that I asked a minute ago, if what they're doing is different from what we're doing, then why is our stuff so late? Why are we late with this?
We just are.
When they provide the information.
Yeah, I mean, we've been asking them for the information. I had to go and dig all this up myself.
So if
But it's not. But the proof is going to be in the pudding, okay?
I guess my only issue is this, because I'm
Okay.
not about blaming.
Okay.
I don't care. If
I'm not blaming anybody.
If we did something, you know, fine, I don't care. But at the end of the day, we just have to accept responsibility for that, because as soon as I saw the note, I think I was walking out of the office close to 5:30 and the email hit. And I immediately sent the two of you an email. I said, why is this happening so late? Please explain this in more details, because it was so broad. And then I said, are there any potential candidates this could affect? Because filing deadline was a matter of some hours away. And for me, it wasn't about candidates, because I'm not monitoring candidate laws. But the timing of it was just different. And is there a way, since what they do has nothing to do with what we do, shouldn't this council put something in place to where we're not gonna have the issue again because of the General Assembly. But
I believe we all received a letter, an open letter from Election Commissioner Norma Lester, and her recommendation was an ordinance specifying a specific time which we would complete this process ahead of time. I thought that was a great idea. I think we can do that.
Alternatively, what you could do is annually evaluate where you are.
there you go.
And I don't have a problem doing that. I mean, that's probably the best way to do it, because these changes are happening too. I mean, I've got a list of all the consolidations, but I got a list like this, 10 pages of all the changes, all of them. You figure it out. This is hard, man. This is not like, it's like if you have a puzzle and you got 7 pieces, it would be easy to put together. But when you got 12,000 pieces, it's like a little bitty puzzle, okay?
And that's why I raised the question about everybody doing their own thing. Nobody's talking to each other. And I'm like, why are you over there doing this piece? We don't know that you started it, or you're in the process of doing it, or when you're expected to finish it. And we've got a piece that has to follow along.
Yeah, I think the proof's gonna be in the pudding. I don't think we've ever had a redistricting that I was involved in that wasn't done accurately and with least disruption. And so at the end of the day, let's just wait and see. Okay?
And then my final 2 things. I saw you talk about the reason why we got to the districts and the super districts. And was the county commission under that same type of requirement, or they have a different requirement? Because I know we went to single member districts.
That's their choice.
Okay, but we can't do that.
Right now, you have to have a charter change. We have a charter
Single member districts.
that has 7 single and 2 super. Absent a charter change, you can't go to 13.
Okay, right, I got that part. I didn't know if there was something that prohibited us legally from making that decision.
That was one of the
chose.
options, one of the 13 options that was on the table in 1995 to go with. Remember, the consensus compromise was to go with what we have now.
Well, since we've been on the council, we all heard the reason why, which, as a 1967 baby, I'm just trying to figure out why everything keeps being broken down. Race here.
It was a race. Voting rights is a racial act.
Well, at this point,
it is a racial act to protect the right. It's an emanation of the Civil Rights Act, 1964.
At this point, we're talking about Memphis, a city that is predominantly African American, and I remember Chairman Lowry talked about when you all did the single member district, the super district, something about some whites and some blacks. They ensured that because somebody was concerned white people were cut out of being elected or something. And we can go back and pull the link, but that was something that was talked about.
Of course, because it was part of the voting rights lawsuit, and that was the compromise.
I'm just trying to figure out why
you're talking about a policy issue now?
Why are we still stuck in black and white?
You can put that out there all you want to. I'm just dealing with what I have to follow. You can talk about why we still doing it, and why the policy ought to be this way or that way. I don't know.
Let me ask you a question. Are we still under the consent decree?
Yes, we are.
Okay, so when you ask a question, and nobody said that, you see what you asked the question, why are we still stuck in black and white? Because we're under the consent decree.
And I just thought I said that. I have to follow the law. I have to
But
follow
you
what we
also-
have. I can't, if you want to talk about an overarching issue about why we don't scrap that whole thing and go to something else, that's a policy issue. That's not a legal issue. Legal issue is, it's in black and white what Judge Turner signed, what the Justice Department approved. That's what I have to follow.
Okay.
And until that changes and the charter changes, that's what I have to follow.
Okay, so if the council decided to change its charter, can it do that on its own, or it would have to?
No, it's got to be approved by the voters.
No,
It's
no,
a charter.
no. I meant,
No, the voters, and then you'd have to go get it blessed.
that's
But they
my
would
point.
probably bless it if it is approved by the.
That's what I was asking.
Judge Turner required us to do, he didn't even tell us to do a charter amendment. He says, you have to do what is legally required by your charter in order to get this approved. And we believe the best way to do it is to get the blessing of the people. The people says, this is what we want. That's what they got. Okay.
Can I
And
ask a
then,
quick
and
question?
then last, this is effective, this recommended change would be, again, I have to ask this, I asked you all this in writing. Regardless as to what we think or feel about potential candidates or not, this would impact districts 3 and 4, correct? Are there any potential candidates who would be affected by, I mean, districts, we know the issue is about.
It's always been
two.
about two.
Right, we know that, but are there any potential candidates that would be affected by?
You're asking something over my head. There's 60 candidates. I don't know where they live. And if you go on the Election Commission's website, they will tell you who they are. They don't put their addresses and what district they're in. I don't know. When I make the change, I'll try to find out.
All right, Collins, Boyd, and Fully Love. And before we get to Collins, let me say this. Mr. Wade?
Yes, sir.
I don't have a problem with calling Terry out of retirement to see if he's willing to work with you as a consultant on a short-term basis to help with this.
Because he knows where all the files are. I don't.
Exactly. Because he has the expertise to help you, and we'll do that. All right, Mr. Collins, Mr. Boyd, Ms. Fully Love.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think Councilwoman Talbot and Councilman Ford were along the same lines of ours headed. One in particular, which is Thursday is the filing deadline, and the withdrawal deadline. And I think that this body needs to probably make a decision on those persons that it might affect. And so I'm going to ask Mr. Wade, hopefully for some instructions for us, because we don't want to be put in a position where we are looked at as if we have manipulated something or concoct a conspiracy to do something. And for all fairness, and now the buzzword in this community is being transparent, we want to be as transparent as possible. So I hope that we can have something by the end of the day that this council can act on. I think that's where Dr. Ford was headed.
Yes.
I'm not sure. I'm not going to put words in his mouth. The second part to this is Ms. Halbert was headed down the road that I thought that, and I still believe might be beneficial for us now going forward. And I think I just heard the chatter, and I'm not sure, is perhaps it might be time for us to look at going to 13 single districts. And so if that's the case, while we have the fire, it might be good for us to draw up the ordinance now and then get it before the voters maybe in the spring primary or whenever it's
next election would be 16.
So, okay, so then we got enough time to
November
explain for everybody, whatever the case may be. But I think that it might be time for us to go ahead and do that as well, considering, as you said, the General Assembly has fixed annexation. And the only thing left now is de-annexation. And if we have these 13 single districts in place, now versus the 2 super district, it may help facilitate lesser work for you or bringing Mr. Langlois out of retirement. So I would, Mr. Chairman, that might be something that this council can do before December so that we can have it in place and put before the voters to leave so that the new council coming in on January 1 wouldn't have to worry about that issue. And so I think that's a little work, but it probably needs to get done. And so hopefully, Mr. Wade, number one, can you advise this council on what we could do pending Thursday's withdrawal deadline and there are candidates in limbo? And then secondly, which is after Thursday, preparing an ordinance such that we can do 13 single districts.
Yeah, I think based on where I am now, there are probably been very few moves. And I believe most of these will be coming into your district. I believe that, I don't know, I'd have to get the addresses, but I would be surprised if there are more than one, maybe now, but then remember, the one, I got a call from Carol Chumney saying she was representing Miss Knox and wanted to sue us, and I said, okay, whatever. But I said, whatever.
That's not correct.
I think the move that move was talking about moving that precinct into 4. And the conventional wisdom is that precinct would be, we do have an African-American woman who have been elected from that precinct. That an African-American would have a greater chance of winning that one than 2. But I don't know that that's going to be a move that would be made. It probably would be the ideal move for demographic purposes, but I don't think that's one that's going to happen. So if that's the one that's making the most noise, probably dismiss it.
All right, Mr. Boyd, Ms. Fully Love, and then we'll hear from Ms. Knox briefly. Bill Boyd.
Oh, I thought you were talking to Mr.
No. The other Mr. Boyd.
He called you
Councilwoman Howard, I recall in the year 2007 when we were all running, most of us, and took office January 2008. In 2007, I'd been out there campaigning 2 or 3 months when I learned that 2 of the precincts had been going door to door, but not even in my district. At the last minute,
They were in my district.
60, but it was like, I'm gonna say 2.5, 3 months before election day.
I remember that.
So that happens, I guess, coming from the election commission. On the split precincts, that's an awful lot consolidated precincts as well. Is that mainly brought about, does a state set state districts have a big effect on that split precinct?
Yeah. When we did the 2000, after the 2010 census, we had a number of precincts that were in the city, in the county. And so our number, population that we came up, if we counted all of the districts, was about 50,000 more than the Census Bureau said was in the city. And so you had to go in and call all that out. And so I think ours is pretty accurate. Now, just listening to the easiest way to do this, and probably the best way to do it, to keep it current without having to go through a lot of, you'd have to test it periodically. But if we went on maps, we pretty much could do this very easily, because we wouldn't have to change our ordinance to identify each and every precinct that's in each and every district. That's the problem. When they change the names and locations, you have to translate all those different 400 precincts into their terminology.
In a location, physical location of a precinct, you say split precinct, you go in that booth and maybe get two different ballots, so to speak,
Yeah.
depending on where
If you had in the South Cordova, no, Southwind Windike, for example, there are, in those two precincts, there are 5 split precincts. They all vote at the same location. 2 of those 5 are in the city, 3 of them in the county. But I have one number for that precinct, and I have to divide that one number among those 5 components. That's the kind of problem that you have. It's not like snapping my finger and then coming up with something else.
I can see confusion going into that one location.
Now, I would tell you, I looked at some District 3s. I saw 3 split precincts. One had 1 human being in it. And there were a couple that had none. None. So why don't we, don't get me started.
Thank you. Ms. Fulila.
Oh, thank you. Okay, I guess the first question I want to ask, why now? Why not 4 years ago if we had to be in compliance with the law, with this redistricting?
You want to answer that question?
Yes.
Okay, 4 years ago, we had a council election. 4 years hence, you have another one.
Right.
Now, you had some referenda. But those don't have to be redistricted because every vote counts equally. A single question, every vote counts the same. The mayor's race, every vote counts the same.
Right.
In council races, you have districts, and they have to be proportionate to give the weight to the city.
Okay, so
we don't do it until we have to do it.
okay, so why did we have to do it, say this time last year?
Why did we?
Yeah, instead of waiting right as we are the cusp.
We did it.
I know you didn't. I'm just saying, why now? Here it is, we have an election coming
I
up.
told you I started in May. Back in May, based on what the election commission had done to that point, okay? And then I started working from that point.
Okay. So, I guess we should be directing if there's some questions to the election commission and why were they dragging their feet? Because this all seems so orchestrated. Every time we get ready to have an election, they're closing precincts. The voters are confused. People go to one place that they think is open, and it's not. And they're not communicated to as to where we have moved your voting precinct. And some people just get so fed up. You were just talking a minute ago about, we were seeing something on the statistical data about, you have all of these people, but it's the majority of them in that particular statistical number don't vote. And then we wonder why, especially African Americans, when it rains, but if it's not raining, why they don't vote. And it may be that some people just get frustrated or just say, well, I knew I used to vote right here at Christ United. I go up to Christ United, they tell me I got to go halfway across town. I don't have the transportation to do that, so forget it.
I have never seen this many moves in 6 month period. This is, but I think it's I understand their job because some polling places go, I don't want to do it anymore. So they have to go find someone else and contract with them. People move, and once they move and they know there's one registered voter somewhere, they're not going to have a polling place just for that person. So I get it. And like I said, to make it easier for us, if we went strictly, if we got our map together, and our boundaries tight along streets and whatever, and we adopted our ordinance based on those maps and not based on all this ever-evolving, changing in districts and consolidations and splits. Remember, after we did it in 11, you had a seat change in the General Assembly. They redistricted. okay? And they did it for a reason, okay? That changed the whole apple cart. Not only for them, but for the configuration of what we're dealing with. So, I mean, that's kind of an explanation. I know, I believe that it is possible to move as few precincts as possible. And, you know, I'm in favor of taking some of them that are split and unsplitting them as much as we can. And I do not believe that's going to have a serious impact on the candidates. That's just my opinion.
All right, Ms. Knox, then Mr. Berlin-Boyd. And before Ms. Knox comes up, I want to repeat something that you've read about what I've said in the public, and that is that we should not affect anyone who's a qualified candidate. And I know that's what it means. I understand what Alan said, but I firmly believe that if somebody's qualified, they should not be disqualified. Ms. Knox, you wanted to make a comment?
Yes, I just wanted to clarify for the record that Carol Chumney is not my counsel in any matters, and that we have not talked about, I've not talked to her at all, but I certainly have not discussed suing the city over this. So I'm not sure why she would have said that, if it was said, but I just want to make sure that that is actually on the record. Thank you.
That's good to put that on the record. Thank you very much. Mr. Boyd.
Thank you. It raised a question for me since I've been hearing Attorney Wade and my fellow colleagues make various statements. Should we consider or start looking into if the city of Memphis could possibly be responsible and hold our own elections? For example, in most cities where a city court clerk handles elections versus, because we always hear these various conspiracy theories with the election commission, and there's always a question. So I know the city of Memphis pays the Shelby County Election Commission to hold elections. I'm just putting it out there for a question.
Okay. Nothing wrong with that. But what you're asking for creates a whole new staff. We pay $1 million plus for an election.
Let me get to the point. The state statutes create a county-wide election commission. You would have to alter that structure to be able to have maybe now, I mean, in my limited experience with this, you guys are the politicians, I'm just a lawyer. I don't know nothing about politics, I don't think this body holds that body as accountable as we should. I mean, and I think it's easy for us to sit here and jack them up every time we don't like something. But unless you're sitting there, you know, putting pressure on them all the time, you should see the things they do. That's ridiculous.
And that's the reason why I raised the question before, Mr. Chairman, you were coming. I mean, I think that the reason we find ourselves in these positions because we don't think outside the box sometimes. We stay complacent in the box. I try to bring out the box thinking. And the only thing I'm saying, if our citizens pay over $1 million to the election commission for them to hold our elections, we should have some say into how
we do, and we should. Let me point out to you, we had a referendum in '97 to put a payroll tax on charter members, and we passed it. We submitted it to the election commission. The election commission got the state coordinator involved. He said, "Oh no, you can't put that on there. It's unconstitutional. You can't put that on there." So we went to Chancellor Court, and Chancellor ruled that the state election coordination was right. That we couldn't put it on there. So we went to the Supreme Court, straight to the Supreme Court. They took the case, and in 5 days rendered an opinion saying the state election coordinator was wrong. Those people are order takers. We are the order makers, okay? We tell them what we want done in our election, they have to do. And that came up recently in the Joe Cooper case where they wouldn't accept his petition. Judge Cowell ruled that they are a ministerial body, citing our case, they have to do what they have to accept his petition. And I only say that to say that we can be more vigilant in what we want them to do. If they're making 117 of these changes, and all of them are within the boundaries of the city, and doing what you're saying, we ought to have somebody that is monitoring what's happening. Right. I mean, that's just my humble opinion, but what do I know?
Well, once again, we will try to get you some assistance within the next 2 weeks. Alan has just committed that he's going to meet with each council member, but I want to bring this back before the executive committee in 2 weeks on the 4th so we can look at it as a whole. Alan, I don't know if you're going to meet with each member and just discuss their district or the whole, but at some point we need to look at the entire city as a whole.
Yeah,
so,
and I'm just going to tell you, I think the most expedient thing will be for us to pass the ordinance, adopting the minimal changes that I will recommend, keeping everything else in place, and then what we need to do is put it back on the plate to reevaluate how we're going to do this going forward. I'm thinking the easiest way is going to be to go from maps primarily, because no matter what they consolidate, our boundaries won't change. They'll have to follow our lead, and we won't be following.
right. Sounds good. Yes, Mr. Ward.
I just want to ask Alan a question. Now, of course, election, I don't know how much some of you are aware of, but election commission is determined by state gubernatorial race and who wins that. You know, it's 5 members, so it's 3 and 2, depending on who it is. So for decades, even back to 2007, when I got shafted last minute, was in the hands of another group. And it was in the same hands of another group for decades. Every time there was a census, the state legislature would redistrict. Now, I don't know what year it's from. When Don Sumpers ran for Congress, that was the change, gerrymandering. They tried to gerrymander him out. This is the first time he ran. He ran against Bob Clement, Frank Clement's son. They took that thing all the way up on the north side of Nashville.
To Nashville.
Crooked, north of Jackson, above Nashville, all the way up to the state line to Clarksville, trying to get Bob Clement elected. But he upset him. He won by 2,000 votes. I mean, so that's been going on for a long time. All that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the privilege. But since then, who has that seat now, Mr. Boyd?
Oh yeah, you're going to talk about the last few years.
No. I'm just saying. I agree with you in total, Mr. Boyd, about for decades, the Democratic Party was in control of the governor in both houses for decades. But it was advantageous for us to have toll bridges, have payroll taxes, income taxes. The Democratic Party was in control. Now, we can't get a puck-on.
Okay, this is a nonpartisan group right here.
Because the Republican Party.
All right, wait. This is a nonpartisan group here.
No, I'm not being. I'm giving history, Mr. Chairman.
You're off focus. You are off focus, and you know it, Mr. Collins.
A puck-on.
All right, let's go back to our turn.
Let me point out one other thing. There's a lot of, I guess what's driving a lot of the concern is that Myron said he didn't want to move anybody. Let me point out a couple of things.
Need your attention, folks. going.
Just because somebody's moved doesn't necessarily mean they're out of the home.
I'm listening, I'm with you.
We're listening.
Okay, so if somebody is a candidate, for example, some hypothetical person is a candidate in a district, in a precinct, all of their qualifying signatures are also in that precinct. If that precinct is moved, that person qualifies wherever they're moved. Okay, that's all I'm saying.
So the district number is a, well,
You have to have qualifying signatures in the district. So if they come out of the precinct that's moved, you got 25 of those, and those 25 all of a sudden become district something else.
Right.
They qualify in that district.
Wait, is that even if the ballot is done on Thursday?
Ms. Triplett, please. We don't do that. Now, I don't mind recognizing you, Ms. Triplett, but don't just, all right. Go ahead.
We have to have our ordinance done 60 days before the election so that they can do a ballot.
So theoretically, what you just said is, if someone is moved, they could run from that precinct. Even though they've got campaign literature out saying they're running over here, they can switch and still be qualified. Is that what you're saying?
And sometimes it may be more advantageous.
It might be more advantageous.
What can I say, baby?
All right, once again, Alan will meet with each of us. I will try to get you some technical assistance, Alan. We'll bring this back before the executive committee in 2 weeks. Any other discussion on this issue? Ms. Fuller, any other discussion on this issue?
Yes, I was telling Alan I'd like to have my meeting at the flight.
All right, wherever. Any other discussion on this issue? All right, we've already gone over the add-ons. Any other items to come before this committee? We are adjourned. See you downstairs. Say that again. I've already done.